This is the new Pico Star from PicoKit. Motion. Five songs. Hold the switch to turn it off. Let's have a look at how to make it.
Hello everyone, we're going to have a look at the new Pico Star. Now this is the next version of Pico Star compared to the last one. It was a little bit smaller, not as yellow. And one of the main differences is we've gone away from the CR2450, the coin cell batteries, and we're going to use the batteries that you can buy from Bunnings now. The CR123A lithium batteries, which are a little bit safer for the kiddies. So let's have a look. So there's not too many differences here, except one of the things is that it's programmable with PicoFlow ALPHA. We've got a port here that you can plug in your kit programmer or one of our $15 programmers to connect with MPLAB-C or MPLAB-X, or any of those to program baseline PICs, but you'll need one of our $15 programmers if you want to use the PicoFlow ALPHA software, which is drag and drop. It's RTTL compatible, so you can put on your Nokia ringtones and everything like that. Well, that's the Pico Star. Let's get started. So some of the components, we've got resistors. We've got 4 180 ohm resistors, 3 4K7s. We've got a 10K resistor and a 1 meg resistor. We've got 5 of the BC327 transistors, a little 225 monolithic capacitor, a photo transistor, a buzzer. Well, it doesn't generate its own tone. You have to do that in software, or it's pre-programmed, with the microchip PIC that comes in. This is an IC socket, and we also have our programming connector for our 5 pins of the ICS. And we have our tactile switch and of course our battery holder. You'll also get a packet of lots of LEDs, 20 LEDs, and of course the PCB. So let's just have a look. First, we're going to start with some resistors, and so we'll have a look at how we shape those resistors. One at a time, we pinch the resistor with 2 fingers and push it over, push the lead over so it's nice and tight. And that is our component forming for our resistors. And we're going to do solder all the resistors in place first of all, because they are the closest to the board and we want them sitting flat, flush to the circuit board so that they don't wiggle and fall free or break, so that they don't wiggle and break the soldered connection. So let's do that with all of our resistors. So first of all, let's turn the PCB so that it's sitting in the right orientation with a point at the top. Now your text might be upside down or it might be the right way around, depending on how it was manufactured. But you should be able to read that. Just turn the video upside down if you want to see it the other way. So let's put in some resistors. Now it doesn't matter which way resistors go, but I like to put them as you read them. So 472, just reading the color codes, 472 would be 4.7K or 4K7, I should say. So I'll do all the 4K7s. We just put them in flat and we bend the leads over at 45 degrees so they don't fall out. Is our 1 meg resistor, which is our brown, black, green, gold. Brown is the number 1, black's the number 0. So 1, 0, 5 more zeros with the green gives us 1, and 6 zeros is 1 meg ohm. Now we'll look at the 10K. 10K is brown, black, but it's got an orange, so it's only got 3 extra zeros, so 1 0 and 4 zeros makes it 10,000 ohms, so 10k ohms. We have our 180s, so that is 1, 8, grey is 8, and 1 extra 0 is 180. So we're just using 4 band resistors here to make it easier to read for the end user. These are carbon film resistors, and we'll put in the rest of those as required. Press that. Okay, so resistors in place. Let's solder. Now these tools I'm using, these are all from Pico kit, and you see this one's a bit bent, unfortunately. Had a hard life. And the solder I'm using is 0.7mm. It's a bit thicker than what some people might use, but it applies nice and quickly with these soldering irons. I've got this set. Well, let's do 300. 300 will melt the solder nice and quickly, so we're not sitting around waiting for it. Okay, we're at 300 solder. I'm just putting the solder on the pad and moving the iron in and leaving it for a second. There it is. Doesn't take much. It uses a bit of capillary action to draw the solder into the hole. So you want it to sort of wick down, so to speak, into the cavity. When we flip it over, we should see there's a bit of solder actually sitting on the other side of the board as well. Now, if any of these do get in the way of you soldering, certainly clip them off, which I'll show you in a second. You can't see that one quickly. Yeah, I think it's done. Put some more heat there just in case. That's fine. Okay, so let's just check on the other side. They'll look pretty good from here. I can see a bit of solder coming through them all. It's good. We'll trim those off. So we've got some flush cut side cutters, also from Pico kit. We're just going to hold those near the surface and hold the wire so they don't flick up in your eye. And we'll just trim those free. We want these trimmed nice and low to the PCB, printed circuit board, because we will be putting some components over the top of these later on. This is a double-sided circuit board. It also has components mounted on both sides of the board. Not too many on the back surface here, but we do need to be aware of that. If you do find it awkward too, you can always turn the circuit board around to do your soldering and trimming from different angles. That's the resistors done. Let's move on to the next smallest component. So we'll be looking at the photo transistor. Now this is polarized. We do have to put the long lead in the square. You can see that there. And the short lead on the other end, and it should match the symbol on the PCB nicely. We're going to hold it in nice and close. And what we might do is just solder one of these, and then, as we'll do with all of our LEDs later on, we'll reheat to reseat it. So, looking here, just solder one. Now I'm going to put some pressure on the back. You'll see it pop up, and there it is. Okay, we put the pressure on the back just so that it sits nice and close to the PCB, so it won't ever wiggle free and break the soldered connection. Once you've done one of those, we can solder the other and trim it off. Okay. So let's have a look at putting in the transistors. Now, the leads of these transistors are 2.5 millimeters, 2.54 together. We do need to spread them apart a little bit like so. And we can just push those in, give them a bit of a wiggle so they sit down nice and close. They don't have to sit flush, but nice and close. And we do that for our 5 transistors, making sure they all match the symbol on the circuit board. Let's solder those in place. Once again, quick to solder just one lead of each transistor to make sure it's in the correct location. That it's seated nicely. Try not to join pads together when they're nice and close like that. Okay. They're looking good. This one's at an angle. You can sort of neatly fix those, straighten them up a bit, and solder off the rest of the leads. And we have it. 5 transistors soldered in place. Let's trim. Okay. Next, let's put in the 225 capacitor. Sits in there. And you have to hold this and bend the leads over 45 degrees so it doesn't fall out. And we can solder this one in place. Okay, ready for the LEDs. We're going to put the central LEDs in first, which are the green LEDs. Once again, a long lead through square, and there are flat spots on these ones. Little tiny flat spots, okay, but definitely long lead through square, and they'll sit down nicely. You don't get long lead through square, they won't work. It's as simple as that. Okay, now they sit in there, but they will fall out. So we do want to bend over at least one of those leads of the LEDs. Okay, so they're not going to fall out. We can solder off one lead and then reseat them. And trim off the leads. That's the green LEDs done. Let's move on to the red LEDs. There's 10 of these. Once again, along lead in square. Okay, bend out the leads. Okay, and we'll solder those in place. One lead, seat them, and then do the second one. So after doing one of each, we just want to turn it over and check that we have in fact got them all seated correctly. I missed that one. There we go. Okay, so turning it over, do a visual inspection. Oh, this one here, definitely not. You can feel those, that's the only one I've got wrong there. So we can reheat to reseat. So with our finger just underneath the offending LED, we can straighten that one up. Let it cool and solidify. Check it. It's still not. It's a bit of a hard one to do. I'm going to do it from underneath. Just watch that. Okay. There it goes. Okay. Any others? This one over here doesn't seem to be seated correctly. Let's just hit that now. Give a bit of a wiggle if needed. Okay. That's a bit more. That's fine. They're looking pretty flush from here, from the side. Okay, so we can solder off the rest of those and then trim. Or you might want to trim off, but you wouldn't want to cut the wrong one. That's all. Like I said, if you can't get to one, turn it around. Okay, that's looking pretty good from here. Let's trim. Try not to poke yourself, but definitely hold on to these leads. They will fly off and potentially hit you in the face. Or they'll land on the carpet. Someone will come in without shoes on one day and they'll get one stuck in their foot like a needle, which would not be a nice experience at all. So better to be safe than sorry. Make sure you hold them as you trim them. That's the red LEDs. Almost there for this side. Just 5 more LEDs, the blue ones, and the buzzer. And then we'll turn it over and do the rest of the components. So once again, long lead through square. And let's solder. Okay, that's all the LEDs. Let's go to the buzzer. Doesn't matter which way this buzzer goes. Now, if we bend these pins over, they might snap off. So better we just hold them in place. If we need to, put on an angle like that. Solder one and then reseat it. There we go. Or better off, get someone to hold it in place for you. There it is, seated in place. Just the 2 pins to solder. Obviously don't heat up the other one while one's still hot, otherwise it falls out. But you can add a bit more solder once the other one's cooled. And they need to be trimmed because we are going to put a battery enclosure over the top of those. There we go. That's all the components on one side done. And you'll see the shiny bits are the bits that we have to solder in place. They're going to be a little bit difficult in there for the battery, battery holder, but we'll see how we go. So we might do the battery holder first, working from the center outwards. Okay, now this does have to go in the correct way. We have a positive end with the indicated by the little plus on the battery holder, and that will be the square end. Sorry, it's not better signed there, but that is the way it goes. And that should sit down enough. Now, if it doesn't sit down enough, do trim some of those components a little bit more. But mine are sticking through. There's a little bit of a, they're sitting on top of those, so I could trim them a bit closer maybe, but I'm not really worried about that as long as it's sitting nice and flat. And I can solder those in place. So in particular, I'm going to come in at an angle here, so I'm not touching the rest of the components, and put some solder on the pad and heat that up and wait for that to wick through. When it's wicked through, then we can remove, and I can do the same on this side. A bit of clearance to come in at that angle. Wait for it to wick. A bit more on there. And maybe if I come in on this side a little bit too. There it goes. Nice. Okay. So we've got those two soldered in place. That's our battery holder. That's the hardest component of them all. Let's do the others. We've got a tactile switch. This tactile switch will go in over here. We want that to sit nice and flat as well. And turn that over and solder those 4 points. 4 pads in place. Solder the 4. You can turn that over and solder the 4 pads in place. There we go. Now we've got the programming header. These are pre-programmed, but if you do want to put your own songs on, then you can use one of these with the PicoFlow ALPHA, or like I said, MPLAB-X. Uses the same pin out. There's 5 of the 6 pins, or 8 pins, depending on which version you have. Okay, I'm just going to hold that in place with one finger and solder one of those. You might want to use something else, like a bit of tape or something, to hold it in place. Hold it nice and still and flush while it solders. I'm just going to look at that and go, oh, it's not very square. Let's heat it up, reseat it so it's nice and flat. Flush to the PCB. We don't want it to wiggle around. Once we've got one of those in place, we can solder off the other ones. Okay. It's our programming connector. Now we have our IC socket. The IC socket, importantly, has a little notch on this end. I don't know if you can see that notch. Put it over the yellow, you might see no. There's a notch in this end, just here. And that should align with the notch on this end. On the symbol, if you can see that, it's a bit hard to see. There is a notch on this end, okay, not this end. Okay, this end. So we're going to align the notches on the IC sockets, and we're going to make sure all of those pins go in nicely and that they don't push the pins out. Now that's not sitting so flush. Maybe I can trim that a little bit more. Let's have a look. Just a little bit there. That's better. Here. Okay, we're just going to bend 2 corners over just to hold it in place and make sure that once they're all sticking through, we can solder them in place. There we have it. That's all the soldering done of our Pico Star. Now to see how to program this to make it work, watch the next video in the series. Thanks for watching.